Welcome back to Top of Mind. Today is a solo episode. I'm riding solo. I wanted to do this episode because it's something that I'm really passionate about. It's something that I love learning about, and at any opportunity I will chat to somebody to teach them, to educate them, to help them understand consumer psychology a little bit more. For me, consumer psychology and behavioral psychology is really important when it comes to marketing, social media, or personal branding. It's understanding why people do the things that they do when it comes to purchasing, buying, selling, how they perceive marketing, and all of that. So today I've got my iPad in front of me because there are 5 really cool consumer psychology insights or I suppose applications or theories, you could call them, that I want to talk about because they have been really relevant to the business that I've built, but also multiple businesses that we've helped in terms of understanding them, understanding how they can work, how they can be implemented in a business. So I wanted to take you through these 5 really cool consumer psychology insights. The 5 insights are the Decoy Effect, priming, the Endowment Effect, the paradox of choice, and anchoring bias. And we're going to get straight into them. The first one is the decoy effect. Now, this one I like to call the small, medium, and large theory. This decoy effect is when consumers are essentially presented with 3 options. We see it most commonly in cafes where you have a small, medium, and large option. You might see it at the movie cinema where you see popcorn, which is small, medium, and large, or at McDonald's or a drive-through where you might have 3 different options in terms of sizing. What it is, it's where a consumer is presented with 3 options where there is one more expensive option and a seemingly less attractive decoy. This is where they're essentially able to choose the middle option. So, for example, a small coffee at $3, a medium coffee at $5, and a large for $5.50 or $6 can actually make the medium option seem like the best deal. Now, one of the other options that I really like to use in terms of demonstrating this is if you go out to a nice restaurant and you speak to the sommelier and you want a bottle of wine for the table, typically the sommelier will say, do you have a price point in mind? And this is where, you might say, let's say, for example, $50 is your price point for a bottle of wine. He might then bring back 3 options. Now, those 3 options will be one that is bang on your price point, that $50 price point, one that is slightly higher, so it might be like a $65 or $70 price point, and then there'll be one that is just slightly higher than that middle price point. That might be like a $70 or a $75 option, so only $5 or $10 more than the original middle option. Now, what that means and how that works is you typically will then go, well, the middle option, which in my mind is actually the second best option, it only costs $5 or $10 more to get the best option that he's presented. So why don't we go with that? So that middle option is that decoy. And that's really how the decoy effect is used in a lot of pricing strategies, a lot of subscription models as well. We see it with, your premium plans and then your enterprise plans, or your beginner, premium, and enterprise. You might have a basic plan at $10 a month, a premium plan at $30 a month, and an enterprise plan at $70 a month. The $70 a month option is actually the decoy option, making the $30 a month seem more accessible, seems like the best value, etc. So you can really use the decoy effect with any of your models when it comes to pricing, when it comes to service offering, when it comes to products that you're selling, making sure that you have one option that seems like the best value because you've got 2 options either side of it that are slightly just outside of those price brackets that you're offering. The next psychology insight that I want to share with you is a application called priming. Now, a lot of people will be familiar with the term priming. It is essentially subtle cues in the environment that can influence your behavior or decision making. Now, this is really common in a lot of, French bakeries. They'll play, Parisian music, and they might make you feel more inclined to purchase something that is, very obviously French. But some examples of how this has been used in stores And the most, I suppose, common, or the one that comes to mind for me immediately, is Abercrombie and Fitch. So in America, Abercrombie and Fitch, their stores actually have a scent that they've now trademarked called Fierce, which is a cologne. They spray this scent all through the stores. They actually have the store manager spray it across the clothing and the bags that they're packing the clothing into. And this scent has become synonymous with Abercrombie and Fitch brand and the stores. So, a lot of their staff wear this cologne or this scent. You can actually smell it in a mall or, a shopping center, and it is synonymous with the Abercrombie brand. Hey, just a quick one. If you are loving this episode, help us grow and reach more people by hitting the subscribe button and leaving a review. Another example of priming, which is a bit more kind of, I suppose, local or frequently used, is bakeries or cafes. One of the biggest insights with a cafe is actually placing the coffee machine at the front of your shop. So the smell of the coffee and the coffee beans being ground actually wafts out of your shop and attracts potential customers. It's the same with the bakery. The ovens are left open after baking to get that scent of the baked goods to waft out into the shop and further out into the street or the mall that bakery is sitting within. It is not an accident that these things happen. It is actually this psychological insight called priming that these businesses use to be able to leverage their product, their scent, the smell, the sound, whatever it is, to shift the way in which people are thinking. Another really great example of priming that's potentially not a smell is Apple's Shot on iPhone campaign. Whenever you see these shot on iPhone videos or social clips, they always have a sense of like wonder or inspiration attached to them. And this is largely due to the music that's being used. So music can be used heavily when it comes to priming. Their Shot on iPhone campaign always uses this like whimsical, magical kind of music in their backing to kind of evoke this feeling of wonder and vastness. And, it makes the shots that actually appear on an Apple's Shot on iPhone campaign seem a lot bigger and more powerful than, they might be if they were paired with other music. So one thing I would suggest is actually playing the Apple Shot on iPhone campaign, but playing it with completely different music. It changes the entire sentiment of the ad and the campaign. So music is a really important part when it comes to priming. The third insight that we have is the endowment effect. And this is the idea that people value items more highly simply because they own them or they have interacted with them. Now, this one I love because there was a study done recently where consumers were able to look at a product and they were able to just look at it. They weren't able to pick it up. They weren't able to touch it. They weren't able to feel it or interact with this particular product. And then those consumers were asked to price that particular product or share how much they think that particular product is worth. Now, everyone as part of this study shared how much they thought that particular product was worth. And then they allowed those people to interact with the product. They allowed them to pick it up, have a feel of it, play around with it, interact with it, and then they were asked how much they think that product is now worth. And 100% of the people that were part of that study valued that product higher after they were able to interact with it and after they were able to touch, feel, engage with it. So the endowment effect ties to the idea that people value items more simply because they interact with them or they own them. Now, this is really, really clearly seen in test drives in vehicles, especially luxury vehicles, free trials, samples. There's a lot of mattress companies that offer you like 100-night free trial before you're able to then make the decision whether you want to return it or not. One of the best examples of this is a software company or even a Spotify, for example, offering you a 30-day free trial of their premium service. But then once people or consumers have integrated that software or Spotify into their daily routine and experience the benefits, users are more likely to perceive that it's higher value than they're paying for it. So they're more likely to continue using it at a premium rate, or they're more likely to continue with the mattress that they've selected because they have owned it for a period of time. So the idea of allowing people to feel as though they've owned something or, I suppose, interacted with the product before they've actually had to make a commitment is called the Endowment Effect. And it's something that a lot of brands, Mecca, are also using it with their Beauty Loop box, where they're giving you a whole heap of samples, which then see a huge uprise in people purchasing that product in the following 3 months from it being included in that Beauty Loop box. Hey guys, if you are listening on Spotify, don't forget to leave us a 5-star rating. And if you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the Q&A function on Spotify. The next one we have is called the paradox of choice. Now, this one is all around limiting the choices that consumers have to make. Now, for a lot of businesses, and we see this all the time, it might seem beneficial for you to offer a huge amount of options and choices when it comes to a consumer. But that can really often overwhelm consumers and lead to decision fatigue, making them less likely to actually purchase that product. So simplifying choices can actually improve the customer experience and increase the opportunity to convert. Now, this particular theory, the paradox of choice, was popularized by psychologist Barry Schwartz, and he suggested that having too many choices can lead to anxiety, decision paralysis, and dissatisfaction. However, some examples of how this plays out with various brands can be seen in brands like Apple and Netflix. Apple simplified their product line to make it really easy for a consumer to understand. They have a limited number of models and variations in their product lines. For example, with the iPhone, it typically only comes in a few versions each year. You've got a standard, a plus, and a pro, which helps to reduce the consumer overwhelm compared to competitors with kind of larger variety of models. Apple's ecosystem is also curated with this paradox of choice theory in mind, because they just allow you to pick whether you want an iPhone, an iPad, or a MacBook. They're your 3 choices when you log on to their website, their digital ecosystem, which seems like it limits the amount of options a consumer has to pick from. If a consumer had to go through and was like, do I want the Pro or the Plus or the Standard, or do I want the MacBook, or do I want an iPad, and they were all presented on the one page, it can often lead to consumers clicking out of that website. Whereas when people log on to the Apple ecosystem, they're presented with the choice of what are you looking for in terms of the product? Is it a computer? Is it a tablet? Is it a phone? Or is it accessories? And then once you're in there, that's when they really simplify that offering and those products that are available. Netflix also does this with, we all know that Netflix, Disney Plus, etc., they have these huge databases of content. They have so much content. They have content with different thumbnails depending on the type of person that is engaging with that content library, right? Now, if you were to see everything that Netflix or Disney Plus or Amazon Prime had to offer, you'd be overwhelmed. And I'm overwhelmed at the best of times when I have a look at Netflix or Disney Plus. But what it does is it breaks it down, saying if you liked this show, you would like this. If you like romantic comedies, you would like this. If you want a thriller, you would like this. So it breaks it down into subcategories that helps a user make a decision by eliminating all of the other distractions when it comes to the content that's presented in that library. So simplifying your product offerings is really important when it comes to implementing the paradox of choice theory. An example of this as well can be seen with cafes or restaurants. And I say this all the time, but like Chinese restaurants do it really well. You go into a Chinese restaurant, they've got a menu of 100 items there. But at the beginning, they always have the chef's pick or the chef's special. And there's like 6 to 8 items on that that allow you to look at them and say, is that something that you want before you go into like all the rice dishes, all the meat dishes, etc. So eliminating the amount of decisions the consumer has to make is how that the theory comes to life. Now, the last one that we have here is anchoring bias. It is a theory that revolves around initial information acting as a reference point. Now, the most common example of this can be seen with discounts. You might see at JB Hi-Fi, it was $1,000, it's now $500. And girl math, you go, I just made $500. But the anchoring bias allows you to have an anchoring point, which might be that higher price point, as a guide for consumer guidelines, in terms of how the consumer can perceive the value of that product. So if you've got a phone that's on sale, it was $1,000, it's now $500, I can sit there and perceive that I'm getting a good deal or a good value for money because of the anchoring point that was the $1,000 mark and what that new price is. Another example of this is with Apple again. When Apple introduces a new iPhone model, they often highlight the highest price point version. So it's usually the Pro Max that they will highlight as their number one product, and they'll say this is how much it is. So that when you start doing your own investigation into what model you actually want, the cost seems lower. So typically with brands, you'll see that they'll launch with their higher model or their higher priced model, so that when you go and have a look at, what you potentially might want to buy, you've mentally set up for that higher price point, so that when you walk into a shop and you see there's actually the Pro that's not the Pro Max that's $300 cheaper, you perceive that you're getting a good deal and you perceive that that's good value. And this can be really seen in their the Tesla product development. Tesla launched with their highest price point model. And then they recently released, Model S was their initial product that they launched. And then when consumers consider other Tesla models like the Model 3 or the Model Y or the Model X, the high price point of Model S makes the Tesla cost of the other models appear more attractive and more affordable. What Tesla also does is with those more affordable options is they then add on options and upgrades, which then creep the price up based on the add-ons or upgrades that you want to make to your particular Tesla when you purchase it. But they've used a particular price point as an anchor and then introduced a lower price point, which then makes the lower price point seem more attractive and valuable. The last example that I'll give of this is with Starbucks. Starbucks often lists larger or more expensive drink sizes at the top of their menu boards, with the high price point acting as an anchor, making the smaller, less expensive items and sizes seem more reasonably priced. And this is the same as your annual versus monthly pricing when it comes to subscription models as well. You'll have an annual price, which might be $350, but monthly you might be paying $12.99 or $50 a month. Now, that can work both ways, because for somebody that can afford it, they might go, okay, well, it's obviously cheaper if I go the annual price point. But for somebody that potentially doesn't have that much disposable income to spend on a subscription up front, going for the monthly option seems like a more affordable option for that particular consumer. And that's how anchoring bias can work in various, businesses, product models, pricing models, and marketing campaigns. Now, these 5 consumer psychology insights are things that I've consistently come back to time and time again when speaking with clients about new product launches, service offerings, etc. And I really wanted to share them with you today. There are so many more that come to mind, but these were the 5 that I wanted to start with. If this is something that is interesting to you, I know that I can get a little bit nerdy when it comes to talking about these things, because it is something that excites me and it's something that helps me understand why brands do things the way that they do them. and why consumers think the way that they think about certain products or prices or offerings. That if this is something that is interesting to you, feel free to drop us a DM at topofmind.pod or leave a comment in or a question in the Q&A function on Spotify or YouTube. And I will see you next time. Before you go, help us grow and reach more people by hitting the subscribe button and leaving us a review. You can also follow us on Instagram and TikTok at topofmind.pod.